So thank you very much for being here, Jai Nitai Prabhu. You will speak about chapter 4, text 34 of the Bhagavad-gītā As It Is, and I will just hand right over to you. And to all of you who have joined us, you know the procedure, since I think you are all, or most of you, actually all of you, more or less regular viewers of our Wednesday Zoom meetings. So we will be recording this. We will put it on YouTube later on, so you can rewatch it and share it with your friends and your family. And you can also ask questions at the end or write something into the chat box at any time. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yeah. So maybe I sing a little bit just because it's always nice to sing. Huh? Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradari, Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradari, Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana, Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana, Yamunatira Vanachari, Yamunatira Vanachari, Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradari, Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradari, Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana, Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana, Yamunatira Manachari, Yamunatira Manachari, Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada, 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 Jai Jaya Prabhupada, Jai Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jai Jaya Prabhupada. Shri Shri Radha Madhava Ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, and Srimad Bhagavad-gītā Ki Jai. Okay, so today we read from the Bhagavad-gītā and the verse in the chapter 4 called Transcendental Knowledge, verse number 34, which is a famous verse. Actually, in this Bhagavad-gītā I don't have the Sanskrit, but this one I learned. It's a very famous verse and I learned it. So, tattva-darśinaḥ praṇipātena paripraśnena sevayā upadekṣyanti jñānaṁ jñāninas tattva-darśinaḥ. Just try to learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master. Inquire from him submissively and render service unto him. The self-realized souls can impart knowledge unto you because they have seen the truth. Purport from His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The path of spiritual realization is undoubtedly difficult. The Lord therefore advises us to approach a bona fide spiritual master in the line of disciplic succession from the Lord himself. No one can be a bona fide spiritual master without following this principle of disciplic succession. The Lord is the original spiritual master, and a person in the disciplic succession can convey the message of the Lord as it is to his disciple. No one can be spiritually realized by manufacturing his own process, as is the fashion of the foolish pretenders. The Bhagavatam says, Dhammam tu sakshat bhagavat pranitam. The path of religion is directly enunciated by the Lord. Therefore, mental speculation or dry arguments cannot help lead one to the right path. Nor by independent study of books of knowledge can one progress in spiritual life. One has to approach a bona fide spiritual master to receive the knowledge. Such a spiritual master should be accepted in full surrender, and one should serve the spiritual master like a menial servant, without false prestige. Satisfaction of the self-realized spiritual master is the secret of advancement in spiritual life. Inquiries and submission constitute the proper combination for spiritual understanding. Unless there is submission and service, inquiries from the learned spiritual master will not be effective. One must be able to pass the test of the spiritual master, and when he sees the genuine desires of the disciple, he automatically blesses the disciple with genuine spiritual understanding. In this verse, both blind following and absurd inquiries are condemned. Not only should one hear submissively from the spiritual master, but one must also get a clear understanding from him in submission and service and inquiries. The bona fide spiritual master is by nature very kind towards the disciple. Therefore, when the student is submissive and is always ready to render service, the reciprocation of knowledge and inquiries becomes perfect. Just gonna put on some light, 1 second. Om Agyanati Minandasya Gyananjala Shalakya Chakshur Ummilitam Mina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Mano Vishnam Staptam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Darati Swavarantikam Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadada Shivasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. One more time the verse. Just try to learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master. Inquire from him submissively and render service unto him. The self-realized soul can impart the self-realized souls can impart knowledge unto you because they have seen the truth. Yeah, so we are in the 4th chapter, which is called Transcendental Knowledge. And this verse, actually quite some parts of this chapter deal with knowledge and how to acquire knowledge. And practically before, we were hearing about certain yagyas one can do, and practically for gaining knowledge. And then also the last verse, which we heard about last week, was also referring to, it was actually referring to knowledge, or explaining how the sacrifice and the knowledge is connected. I will just read it. O chastiser of the enemy, the sacrifice performed in knowledge is better than the sacrifice of material possessions. After all, O son of Prita, all sacrifices of work culminate in transcendental knowledge. So, transcendental knowledge, what does it mean? Of course, we know there's karma yoga, jnana yoga, and bhakti yoga, practically, which is described also in the Bhagavad-gītā. And like real transcendental knowledge is, of course, to understand the transcendental nature of the living entity and its connection to Krishna. And that is the ultimate transcendental knowledge, or practically bhakti yoga. Srila Prabhupada also translates Krishna's in the 2nd chapter. He's speaking about buddhi yoga, the yoga of intelligence, and Prabhupada just translates this word as if there was written bhakti yoga. And why does he do so? Because ultimately that is what Krishna is speaking about. And so we can understand this, that in the end of the 4th chapter, that's also the topic Krishna is speaking about. And so in the verse of today, we hear about the process or the important part of the process to accept a spiritual master for gaining transcendental knowledge. And yeah, it's a very essential part of our practice, practically, to accept the spiritual master. We can see, like in the Nectar of Devotion, written by Rupa Goswami, he gives 64 angas of devotional service, and the first 3 are referring to this spiritual master, practically. And so also we can see in many parts of the Bhagavatam, we can see, and like we're just chanting the Mangala Charan, actually, which is also practically praising the spiritual master and the acharyas. So the line of disciplic succession. And this is what Srila Prabhupada is also referring to in the Purport, that real knowledge comes in the line of disciplic succession, and which actually originates from Krishna himself. So Krishna is the origin of this transcendental knowledge, of this real knowledge. And that's of course quite a fact, that Krishna, so of course he gives us scripture. We know the Vedas are also a manifestation of Krishna, and this is also practically sent by Krishna for the living entities to uplift us and to enlighten the living entities. But he also gives the disciplic succession, and this disciplic succession is also essential because it is just possible through this disciplic succession to understand the Vedas, or the conclusion of the Vedas. And because this disciplic succession is practically what is the Vedas teach in theory, you can say, like books are quite theoretical. The disciplic succession is put the teachings of the the Vedic scriptures in real life, or the teachings of bhakti are performed in real life. And there's a spiritual master. He is a devotee of Krishna, and he has love for Krishna, and that makes the spiritual master special, because and that's actually practically for us as bhakti yogis, that is the most essential point for approaching the spiritual master, because he has connection to Krishna, he has love to Krishna, and he can teach us in practice of bhakti yoga, and in this way guide us towards this love of Krishna. So the disciplic succession starts with Krishna himself, and then Lord Brahma and Narada Muni, Vyasadeva, and in this way it comes down. And it's quite interesting that practically this whole knowledge which we receive today, it was given from person to person practically since the beginning of creation. This is our disciplic succession is going back until this point, and this is quite amazing fact actually, that this chain of disciplic succession is so old, and such a long tradition. And Srila Prabhupada, in the beginning of his purport, he's emphasizing the importance of the disciplic succession, and explaining for a spiritual master to be bona fide, he has to be in a disciplic succession. And that's also a very important fact, because we know that there's many gurus from India, and in the 60s, 70s, there was quite some hype about gurus, but still nowadays also we every now and then we hear about some guru who's like who's becoming very popular, and who gets a lot of attention, and people kind of feel attracted to him or her, because he gives people a nice feeling, or people get a nice feeling from that person, or they some spiritual feeling and these things. But we can see, of course, if we have a close look on what they teach and where they come from, if they're not in the disciplic succession, and if they don't teach Krishna consciousness and love of Godhead as the ultimate goal. And actually this devotional service also, this is one thing which Prabhupada, he translated Bhakti Yoga as devotional service. So the service aspect is very important, because, for example, Bhakti Yoga, it became quite popular nowadays also, and in the esoteric or yoga scene, people know about Bhakti Yoga, and then they, in German, it's Yoga der Hingabe, and it sounds like really like, or even English also, like the yoga of devotion and the yoga of love, and this is something which people like can easily misinterpret, of course, because yoga of love, and then people think about whatever they think about, if they think about love or devotion, and practically they come towards sense gratification. That's actually what comes to their mind, and that's what's in their mind, and they think this is kind of a yoga which is where sense gratification is a process, practically, in a way, having sense gratification that you don't disturb anybody else, or that everybody is in love, like that. And but that's not the goal of yoga, and not the goal of Bhakti Yoga. The goal of yoga is loving service for Krishna, and the service attitude is it's a credential point, you can say, like this, or like the crucial point. That's the point where it's about service. That's what Bhakti Yoga is all about, and that's what our tradition is all about. And also the relationship with the spiritual masters about that. Our relationship with Krishna is about that. It's about service. And we also hear this in the verse. Yeah, that's it's explained. Inquire from this, and you should approach the spiritual master, and you should inquire from him submissively, and render service unto him. So practically, two things are given here. You should inquire from him submissively, and render service unto him. So to approach a spiritual master should be done in a very humble way, and in a service attitude. So what does it mean, a service attitude? It's or why is it like, why should we approach a spiritual master like that? I mean, or why should we approach a spiritual master at all? That's maybe the first question. Like sometimes people on the street, when I distribute books, sometimes I meet people and they say, yeah, I don't need a spiritual master. I have everything within me, I don't need books. I don't need a spiritual master. Everything is within me, and we don't need knowledge from outside practically. That's some people have this conception. So then I asked them, then I asked also, okay, what this book should teach me. And then I asked them, okay, how did you learn mathematics? So how do you know what is 10 plus 10? So, and how did you learn it? Did you come to it by yourself, or did somebody teach you? And of course, spiritual life is something much more complicated in a way. I mean, actually, on the philosophical point, maybe it's not so complicated as some mathematician tasks, but on the practical point of view, it's sometimes more complicated, because we have to overcome our false ego, and we have to give up overcome our mind, and have to give up our false ego. But in that sense, it's complicated. So, and yeah, sure, it's much easier, or it's practically not possible to learn the things about bhakti yoga just from yourself. That's not the process. We know, we just heard about it. Krishna, he reveals this knowledge through the Vedas and through the disciplic succession. So if you want to know Krishna, you have to approach him through the disciplic succession and the Vedas. There's no other way how to approach Krishna. That's so whatever you might, and Prabhupada is also referring to that you might speculate, and you might have your own ideas about spiritual life, and or you might read some books on your own, and you might have some own understanding of spiritual life, but practically it's just worthless. So it's useless. It's not connected with Krishna. So it's actually not teaching the ultimate conclusion, and it's actually not bringing us to the absolute truth. And it actually doesn't give the satisfaction to the soul, what the soul is searching for. And therefore, the Vedas say one should approach a spiritual master, and somebody who has seen the truth. This is also explained in this verse. Jñāninas tattva-darśinaḥ. This is they have seen the truth. The self-realized souls. They have seen the truth. That's actually very interesting. So, and we know about Srila Prabhupada that practically, if we analyze what Prabhupada wrote, what he spoke, how he interacted with people, we can see that he was always seeing Krishna, that he was always connected with Krishna, so he was always seeing the truth practically. And that makes the spiritual master very special. And so we come to the point, why should we approach him in a submissive way, and why should we render service unto him? Because actually the spiritual master, he doesn't need us. We are, but we need him. That's practically how it is, The same. So the spiritual master is practically a manifestation of Balaram, and Balaram a manifestation of Krishna. So it's Krishna and Krishna is Atmaram. He's in himself happy. He's not depending on us. That's one aspect of Krishna, that he is independent, whereas we are dependent. So, and that's an important aspect of the relationship. So Krishna, he's the absolute truth. He's unlimited, and we are limited. And he's independent, and we are dependent. He's Atmaram, in himself happy. And we as spiritual souls are happy when we are connected with him. So we need we need Krishna, and we need the spiritual master for realizing Krishna. Or the spiritual master is the representation of Krishna in that sense. He's a representative of Krishna. And that's also an important aspect of the spiritual master, that he's transparent via media. So, and actually a manifestation of the super soul. So the spiritual master, he's just teaching what he learned in the disciplic succession. He's not leaving something aside, and he's not adding something. And in that sense, this disciplic succession as a manifestation of Krishna. So in that sense, he's a manifestation of Krishna's words. And then, of course, the super soul, within everyone's heart. And the spiritual master is as a representation, or the external super soul, you can say. That's an amazing thing. And he doesn't have 4 arms, and he doesn't look like Krishna in the form of a super soul, but he's practically, the super soul is working through the spiritual master in particularly. And so we should be submissive, because we can understand we are in this material world, and this material world is full of suffering. We are in darkness. We are we practically lost our connection to the absolute, and we are totally depending. We don't know what's happening after this life. It's like, it's not in our hands. Of course, we can perform bhakti yoga, and Krishna says that somebody who turns to him, he picks him up. But ultimately it's up to Krishna to do it. It's his promise, and we are depending on Krishna. That is the relationship, and that's essential also of this relationship. And so in that sense, we have all reason to be submissive, practically. It's also that it's our fault that we are in this material world and that we are suffering. It's our own fault that we are in illusion, and it was our own choice. And if we choose for it, so we cannot not blame anybody else. And if we understand that we are depending, then we should submissively ask to for guidance, and actually that this illusion becomes that we become free from this illusion. This is this verse of the Mangala Charan, which we also chant: Om Magyanti Mirandasya Gyananjana Chalakya Chakshu Meditamina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So he opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge, the spiritual master. So that is what the spiritual master is doing. He's actually giving us the proper vision. He opened the eyes with a torchlight of knowledge. He shed the right light on things. And also sometimes it's in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it's explained also that the spiritual master is like a touchstone. So we know the touchstone, it can make normal metal into gold. And the same way, the spiritual master, he can actually, like Srila Prabhupada also once said, like, my spiritual master, he made me into a diamond. So that's actually what the spiritual master is doing with us. He's transforming us. And so we can understand this is that we are depending on the spiritual master and his mercy. And the way to get this mercy is actually, you cannot impress actually the spiritual master or Krishna. You cannot impress him. The Krishna is the origin of everything, and the spiritual master is a dear servant of Krishna. So you cannot impress him by any material attributes. That is not at all impressive for the spiritual master. And but what and so he is not willing to, or he's not inclined to, actually it's not possible for him to give us mercy if we are approaching him in the incorrect way, because that's actually the basic most important aspect for receiving the mercy is the attitude of the disciple. If he approaches a bona fide spiritual master, so if the spiritual master is bona fide, then it's essential that the disciple has a correct mood and is approaching him in a submissive and in a service attitude. Because if the disciple doesn't do it like this, then he's actually not able to accept the mercy. He's actually not asking for it. If we are not submissive, if we are not inquiring, that means then we are the opposite. This means we are kind of puffed up or proud, or we are not inquiring. Means we think we are very learned, or we understand how things are, or we know better. And that's of course not possible then that the teachings can reach us. But on the other hand, if we develop this attitude of submission and rendering service, then we can get a lot of mercy. And it's interesting because it's an interesting connection, because which is also an interesting aspect of devotional service practically, because we render service, but we have to do it unmotivated and unintentionally, just for pleasing Krishna and just for pleasing the spiritual master. So we don't normally, in the material relationships, we say like, okay, I can do this and that, and okay, sometimes we do something just for like to be nice to somebody, but ultimately if we use up a lot of energy, then we also have to think of ourselves, and we think like, okay, what I can do this, but what can you do for me, like this. So in this and of course we are influenced by this mentality, but it's not the right mentality to approach the spiritual master. We approach the spiritual master and just submissively, eagerly render service to him. And we don't seek his attention. And we come back actually to the point of we don't expect that he gives us a lot of attention, because there's two aspects which are important. On the one hand, the disciple thinks his service to be very insignificant and not very important, and so he doesn't expect a lot to gain. This same example, if I would do insignificant servant for my neighbor, for example, whatever, accept a parcel which the post delivery was sending, and he will pick it up later the day, and then I don't expect that the neighbor will like give me a lot of congratulations or whatever, or will be very pleased with me. Of course, he's happy to get his parcel and whatever, but it's not like he's showering me with all kinds of presents or whatever. In the same way, we can see our service which we're doing for the spiritual master, even though it might be for us a great endeavor, but we should always understand that it's still with a lot of faults. We are doing a lot of faults. And it's not very special. And the wonderful thing is, the more we have this attitude, the more the service becomes special. That's the interesting paradox about spiritual life. So the more we are submissive, and then we might even do a very small service, but this becomes very great. And we make a lot of endeavor, we may take a lot of energy, but if we have the wrong attitude and are puffed up and or getting doing it for some, for some glorification or whatever, then it doesn't have the same benefit, and it doesn't give the same taste, actually, because ultimately this bhakti yoga is about relationship, and the relationship is about taste, and also the relationship with the spiritual master is about taste. So the spiritual master, he has taste in Krishna consciousness, and if we render service in a submissive way, then we get also taste, and we also get taste in the service for Krishna. And it's also a very interesting aspect about it, is that it doesn't have to be like here, because we are speaking about service to the spiritual master. It doesn't have to be that, and nowadays spiritual masters, or Srila Prabhupada also, he had many disciples. So it doesn't mean that everybody has to be around Srila Prabhupada and everybody has to cook for him, and like once in a lifetime every disciple should have cooked for Prabhupada, that he had rendered some service for him. No, it's, of course, it becomes much broader. It's actually even if we just worship Krishna, we do it through the spiritual master, and so practically this is also serving the spiritual master if we practice bhakti yoga. But also, of course, we can try to understand the. I mean, of course, Srila Prabhupada is our acharya. He's the most important spiritual master for us, and or he's actually the spiritual master of our spiritual masters. And so we can look at the mission, and actually our spiritual masters, they are all in the mission of Srila Prabhupada. So we can also see what is the mission of the spiritual master. So our spiritual masters, they have the mission to please Srila Prabhupada and to support Srila Prabhupada's mission, and we can engage in the mission of Srila Prabhupada. And also this will get a lot of we will get a lot of taste and happiness. We can serve in the temples of ISKCON. We get a lot of taste and happiness, and in this way, rendering service in a submissive way is actually the essence of bhakti yoga. And there's one pastime with Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Maharaj, the spiritual master of Srila Prabhupada, and he was there was some scholar who wanted to meet him, and I think he was waiting for some time, like a few hours, to have a darshan with him, and I don't know, maybe it was not so much, but he was waiting for some time, and then Bhaktisiddhanta, he said, "I'm sorry, I don't have time at the moment, but you can help in the kitchen." Or help him do some service practically, and I can later I can talk to you. And because he had some spiritual inclination, also this person who came to him, because we can understand in this example somebody who would just have been puffed up or just basically no idea for spiritual life at all, he might have said, "Yeah, come on, that's too much, I will leave now." But he understood, okay, this is a genuine spiritual master, and okay, he's asking me to help. Okay, I will do this. Sadhu is asking, so what can I do? And he was helping. And then later he met Bhaktisiddhanta, and he said, "All my questions are answered." And because here, the second part of the verse says, or the last part says, "The self-realized soul can impart knowledge unto you because they have seen the truth." So what does this knowledge mean? Now we come back to the knowledge means to actually the realizations in devotional service, the realizations about Krishna, and realizations about devotional service. And that is practically the knowledge we receive through engaging in the service of the spiritual master. And it becomes more and more the more we actually become servants, and the more we will see Krishna everywhere, and the more we will actually become spiritual souls. I mean, act as spiritual souls. Okay, let me just have a small look on the purport. Something I... Yeah, one thing Prabhupada mentioned also in the verse, in the purport, that the nature of the spiritual master is to be very kind, and that is, I think, is also very important to understand, and also what means this kindness. You know, the kindness doesn't mean that we have to, yeah, that he's like very polite always, you know, like, or like a. The kindness means he's our well-wisher practically, and he's and this makes actually the connection with the spiritual master very special, because if we accept the spiritual master and he becomes our, we have, this actually becomes, he becomes responsible for us in a way. So that if he accepts us, so, and so he is always ready to help us in spiritual life, which doesn't mean that we should bombard him with questions. And it doesn't also mean that he's always answering all our letters. But it means that he's always our well-wisher, and that he's always praying for us to Krishna. And yeah, that he's yeah, that he's a real friend practically. You know, that's something. It's good to know, huh? That there's somebody who's our real friend, and who's like really helping us. And yeah, I think this is a very important part also. And of course, Srila Prabhupada wanted all of us to become very kind also. And that's practically the mission of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, to spread the mercy. And this means to become really well-wishers of other living entities. And we know that's not an easy task, you know, because, yeah, you just, for example, I just made a walk before, and I was chanting on the street, and there was two persons came to me, like strong guys, and somehow one of them, he was kind of disturbed by me and chanting, and he was saying something to me, you know, and like quite aggressive. And anyways, I just walked a little bit further, and then I asked if he said something to me. I asked him, and anyways, and the situation kind of dissolved and was okay. But then we might, in such a situation, we might say like, such an idiot and whatever, you know, how can he be so unfriendly and so on. And I mean, there's much worse situations, of course, you know, like probably all of us have been in some situations where we thought like, come on. Like one popular example which comes to my mind is also like, when you go to India, then in India, people, they if they go in the traffic, there's the horn, which is kind of an essential part of the car. It's more important than the brakes or anything else, is the horn, you know, because they're always horning. And it's not in a, it's not in an aggressive way, actually, you know. Of course, there's some rajas, you know, everybody wants to make his way, and they're communicating with the horn, but it's not in a, like if we use a horn here in Germany, normally somebody is angry on somebody else, you know, and or becomes angry. But in India, it's not like that, you know. It's just like somebody's horning just if you're in the way, and it's and if you're a little bit in the way, or it's actually just horning if you're not at all in the way, but just to let you know that he's coming and that you shouldn't make a step to the side. So, and then, but with a Western mind, we're used to horning when that somebody's angry on you. And then I sometimes noticed when I hear somebody behind me and he's just horning, and I think, come on, leave me alone, you know, I'm just walking here, and go this way, and getting aggressive. So anyways, what was the point? The point was that, what was the point? Just have to think about it again. Yeah, being kind to others, right? Yeah, that's not being disturbed, but actually being compassionate, even to somebody who might get on our nerves, or who we might be, we might disagree with, or who might be, who might be offending us. Even, it might be even a real offense, but we should always work on the kindness, and meaning actually mainly also again is it's attitude, like overcoming the pain, overcoming the dualities, seeing everybody as a servant of Krishna, and trying to be kind to everyone, because that's actually better for us, because then we are not disturbed by others so easily, which makes our life even also better, if and it's also Krishna is happy, and so we also get we can be more open for the relationship with Krishna. So and we are very happy that we can be very happy that Krishna is kind to us, that the spiritual master is kind to us. So practically we should be kind to others also. That's like that's kind of, it's said you cannot repay the debts of the spiritual master. You have towards your spiritual master. It's not possible to repay what he what he gives you. Normally we can somehow pay something for what we give, or we can work or whatever, try to, but what the spiritual master gives us, it's impossible to repay it. So we should repay it, and by trying to please him, and he becomes very pleased if we become kind to others, like what I explained, to overcome grief with other persons, to be to trying to become a well-wisher of everyone, and then to distribute this knowledge also. Like of course we have our social settings, our social environments, our friends, our families, and devotee community, and of course there we should practice kindness, but also we should and it's very of course it's also very important, because devotees are very dear to Krishna, but then we should also overcome ourselves and try to spread this kindness in the world. And it's an interesting aspect. What does it mean to give this kindness, or to be kind to others? It's actually to preach. And I think for the mind it's sometimes difficult, because others think, oh, come on, don't leave me alone with this religion. They have heard so many religions and so many ideas and ideologies, and say this ism, that ism, and they have their ism already and are convinced about their ideas of life, and so they don't want us to give them another religion. And so if you're on the street and everybody tells you practically this, or has this energy, like, I don't want your religion, and then you might forget that you're not there to give them a religion, but you're actually there to give them kindness. And that's an interesting aspect. So even though it looks like we're trying to give a religion, we are actually giving kindness. And this, like we can see Srila Prabhupada, he's a perfect person embodying this kindness. Like when a reporter came to him and was asking him question, he actually didn't care about. He actually cared for the reporter. He was speaking to the person. He was not like thinking about himself and how he wants to present this or that. No, he was actually always preaching, but preaching not from like real preaching, like real. Which means giving kindness, actually being kind, or giving mercy. And he was always doing this 24 hours, when he met his disciples, or when he met other persons, when he was giving lectures, when he was cooking prasadam, cooking bhoga, was worshipping the deities. He was always meditating on and spreading the mercy, because this was the mission he got from his spiritual master. And yeah, we can see how, and he was actually submissively following the instructions of his spiritual master and submissively doing service. And we can see this is also interesting. Prabhupada, he didn't have a lot of association with his spiritual master. There were others who had much more connection, or had much more association with Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj. And also with Srila Prabhupada, there's many disciples who had much more association with him. But still, there are some disciples now who didn't have much association but became very great preachers, or actually, you can see they make a lot of service for him, for Srila Prabhupada. And actually, we can understand they're dear servants of Srila Prabhupada. And so it doesn't mean this rendering service to the spiritual master doesn't mean you have to be very close to him, and it's not about this. Like, I think it was also Bhaktisiddhanta, he said also, like a bug, he is also very close. You know, if you have a bug on your clothes, then he's very close to you, but doesn't mean that he's let's say like he's doing a lot of service, or he's a good disciple. So it's not about being, that's interesting aspect. It's not about, we should of course glorify and we should seek the association of the spiritual master, but we should also inquire from him submissively and approach him with a service attitude. And then also we should be able to do service when we don't have direct association, or we should be eager to do service always. Yeah. Yeah, and this is, of course, for us as followers of Srila Prabhupada and our Guru Maharajas who follow Srila Prabhupada, is also this giving kindness is an important aspect. And it's actually something we have to meditate on. It's about, it's actually about this becoming, realizing that we got so much mercy, that Krishna is so merciful, like becoming absorbed in the glories of Krishna, and then, yeah, just having the desire that others can also have this some insight in that. And of course, understanding the brutality of the material world, and that all this, I mean, there's so many debates on so many things nowadays, like whatever it is, you know, like, but so mmany dualities, letztendlich, so many dualities in the end. That means, but these dualities, they don't help us, you know. It doesn't help the spiritual soul. And actually, if we become like real devotees of Krishna, then we can overcome all these dualities. Not only that, but also the circumstances for life itself become more comfortable and better in this material world, also for everybody who becomes Krishna conscious, but also for everybody in the environment. Yeah, okay, so that's what came to my mind today. Of course, you could speak for hours and hours and days on this verse and this topic. It's a very essential topic, and it's very, I like it very much. It's I like, because yeah, it's nice to know that somebody is your well-wisher, and that you really can experience this, and like we can meet a person and we can understand this person is my well-wisher and he's helping me. And when I was approaching my spiritual master and I was asking if he accepts me as his disciple, and he accepted me, it was such a wonderful feeling, you know, to know that this person will help me to overcome my own problems, my own struggles, my limitations, to become purified. And yeah, ultimately he wants to bring me back to Godhead, you know. And what is this, you know, like, this unbelievable. So but that's really what it is, you know. And so that's actually a wonderful aspect. And yeah, it's this relationship with the spiritual master is a very wonderful thing. So, yeah, that's what I wanted to say. Thank you very much for your attention. Somebody has a question or comment, we have a few minutes to speak about.
Thank you very much, Jai Nitai Prabhu. We can see there is a question. I can see a question in the chat box. It's by Shumit. He says, Hare Krishna Prabhu, please accept my humble obeisances. Wonderful lecture as always. I have two questions. How can one choose a spiritual master? And what kind of qualities should a disciple look for while choosing a spiritual master?
Okay, yeah, very good questions. It shows that you're sincere. Very nice. And of course, we have to pray. That is the thing, you know. It's like we are depending on Krishna's mercy and on the mercy of the spiritual master also. So we cannot buy the spiritual master, you know. And you cannot impress him in any way. And it's just mercy which we need, and we can pray for the mercy, of course. And if we are sincere, then Krishna will send us a spiritual master. And Srila Prabhupada says this, choosing a spiritual master, I think it's in our society for Krishna consciousness, ISKCON society, there's a lot of spiritual masters, and of course, then you still might ask which one is the right one. And I guess, you know, for me, for example, I was also not 100% sure, is this now the right person? Is this my spiritual master, or is it the other one? And I thought I maybe should meet all the other spiritual masters to be sure. And when I have the right feeling, then I have this feeling in the heart and some signs from outside coming. Then I know this is my spiritual master. And then actually what happened, I was living in a temple already since 3 years or 2 or 3 years. And then somebody just moved in, a Bhakta, you know, and this Bhakta, he approached my spiritual master then, Kadambakhanana Swami, and he asked him if he could be his disciple. And Maharaj said, yes, okay. I mean, he didn't initiate him, but yeah, we can, okay, I accept you. You're my, approaching, not approaching, there's this word, how you say?
Aspire, maybe?
Aspiring disciple. So, and then I became envious on him, and I thought, this cannot be, you know, I'm here already 3 years in the temple, and I'm much more advanced, you know, doing service and so on. And he's just here a few weeks, and now he's has already a spiritual master. But then I realized, okay, he just asked him, I can also do that, you know. And it's not like I don't have to blame him, you know, I don't have to be envious. I mean, he's not my enemy. And actually, he is my friend. In the end, I can say he's my friend because he helped me to approach the spiritual master. And because then I thought before, of course, but I thought, okay, he's coming a lot of times to our temple. He spread a lot of mercy here. He's like, I noticed that what he says in his lectures, the instructions he gives, I take them to my heart. I try to follow them. That's what you do normally as a disciple from the spiritual master. And yeah, I like him. I like his personalities. His lectures, they inspire me a lot. So yeah, and if I from all the spiritual masters which I know, this makes, and then I see his disciples, and I can see his disciples, they make a lot of progress. So I can see and from all the spiritual masters I know, he's kind of he's the closest. I'm the closest to him. So yeah, I will accept him as I will ask him if he accepts me as a spiritual master. And yeah, he did. So, and now we cannot, was it the right or was it wrong, you know? Maybe there was somebody else who's meant to be my spiritual master. Maybe. But I don't think so. I think in the end, he's the person Krishna has sent to me, which doesn't mean that if I would have chosen another one, that he could have been the person. So in the end, it might not be so crucial, I would say. I mean, I don't, and that's my personal understanding. Maybe that's, I mean, as followers of Srila Prabhupada, sincere followers of Prabhupada in our Hare Krishna society, I think the spiritual masters which are around, they are all bona fide and can all bring us back to Godhead. And of course, they have different personalities, and so they have different. Yeah, and we are different personalities. So there's some we can easily connect to, and others who are, and some might react. For example, my spiritual master, he doesn't always answer a letter if you write him, and there's others who do it like this, So if you have my spiritual master as a spiritual master, then you have to live with it, and you and you cannot blame him because he's your spiritual master, So you just have to understand he's still your well-wisher, even though he doesn't answer all your letters you write him, So and that is not what qualifies a spiritual master as a spiritual master. So yeah, and in the end, you have to be eager to find a spiritual master. Of course, you can also do some steps, like it's not that the spiritual master is knocking on your door. You have to knock at his door. You have to approach him. Usually it's like this. Of course, it might be that it's Krishna is inspiring the spiritual master to approach you or helping you. But normally you have to approach your spiritual master. And I forgot the second question. What was the second question?
The second question is, what kind of qualities should a disciple look for while choosing a spiritual master?
Yeah, I guess I also refer to that in the answer. I mean, of course, there's some references given in the scriptures, but I don't know them. So, but you should actually, what you can do, there's this guru-disciple course, which is you can do it online, or in some temples they do it physically, which is of course probably problematic at the moment. But this is actually also nowadays a standard. If you want to get initiated, you have to do this course also, and I think it's a good idea. And I didn't do it because I didn't have to do it at that time. I still want to do it, and yeah, maybe there this question is more answered, but in general, yeah, I think, yeah, for me, it's most important to see that the connection to Srila Prabhupada, because in ISKCON, the spiritual master is a servant of Srila Prabhupada, and of course that he's teaching the teachings of Srila Prabhupada, and that he, that of course he is also absorbed in glorifying Krishna and has a deep taste in practicing Krishna consciousness. This is also something which makes a spiritual master, which is an attribute of the spiritual master. We just in the chat box, it's written, Damodar Priya gives a guru and disciple course on Tuesday, 7 p.m. You can contact her. She serves in Goloka Dham.
It's also available in, different institutions and temples offer it in different languages all over the world: English, Bangla, Hindi, German, Russian, certainly also. And Damodar Priya gives that course in German. One thing I remember from that course was that you should not look for material qualifications or material criteria. Sometimes people choose a guru because he's funny, or sometimes, like someone told me that he heard someone say, "Oh, my guru is so inspiring, he's so funny," or something like that. And I was thinking of that while you mentioned in the very beginning, the popularity of gurus in the 60s, 70s, etc. There was one very, very famous, some would call him rock star guru, Prabhupada would have certainly called him rascal, cheater, or something like that, because he was actually not teaching any kind of real spirituality. And I know there was a documentary about him, and I watched it. It was very interesting story. But yeah, in the end, it all failed. It all collapsed. And I found one video of him on the internet making jokes, like 3 to 4 minutes. He was making jokes, and I know for a fact from other sources that he did have a personal joke writer for him. He had one disciple who was writing jokes for him, and certainly that disciple must have written all these jokes that he was making in that funny video. And I think it was very, very funny, but it was very bad humor, and it was not spiritual at all. So basically that is not a good criteria. So we have some more questions in the chat. Yeah, there is one by Devaki, which is not visible to you because it was only sent to me for some reason. She writes, Hare Krishna, Pamho AGTSP. What should be the criteria for taking shelter of a spiritual master? Should it be someone who we feel at ease with and that makes us feel inspired? Or is it more important to take shelter of someone who challenges us and provokes a transformation in our hearts? Also, do you have any advice on how to deepen our meditation on our spiritual master despite being at a distance?
Yeah, I will first answer the first question, the second question. Yeah, I mean, I think we can, of course, ask the spiritual master for instruction, and maybe he gives us some instruction for our life also, and then, of course, we can meditate on that and try to put that in practice. This is, for example, something which I have, which is a very important aspect of my relationship with my spiritual master, that that's things which I know that are pleasing to him, which he would love to see in me, or would love to see me to do, that I try to put that in practice and I work on that. And that's, of course, one thing. And it doesn't always have to be a personal instruction also. Like Prabhupada, he said, sometimes I'm instructing you personally, publicly in my lectures, which means like I give you personally instruction in the public in my lectures. And actually, we know this, like if we listen to Srila Prabhupada, or if you listen to lectures from devotees or a spiritual master, of course, there's also Shiksha gurus, so others who can also inspire us or can actually give us inspiration for spiritual life, and to become more sincere. So we know that sometimes we hear a talk or something, and we feel like, okay, this is really relevant for me. That is really, it's like he's speaking to me, you know. And so that is something we can do also. We can, but also, of course, we can write sometimes to the spiritual master, and that's good, I think. Some spiritual masters even request the disciples to write them regularly, and I think that is good. And as I said, it's maybe we shouldn't expect him to answer always, and but it's generally it's not forbidden to write him, and that's good. To reveal our heart is very important. That's actually a very important aspect of this relationship, which doesn't mean that I tell the spiritual master everything I did wrong in my life, you know. And revealing the heart means to seriously, honestly face our own impurities and trying to overcome them, and approaching the spiritual master with this desire practically, you know, like looking at our own faults, trying to see what is actually blocking me in spiritual life, like how can I and trying to make progress. We might not see everything which is blocking us in our spiritual life, and we can ask for guidance and like this. Also, of course, if we have important steps in our life, especially in the spiritual life, but also material life, we can. It's good to ask the spiritual master for guidance, also, for feedback. And yeah, of course, we can hear lectures. Maybe if we, I mean, nowadays we find all the spiritual masters online also, so you can read his books and listen to his lectures and associate with his disciples. And in that sense, you're also associating with the spiritual master if it's not close by. But I think the most important, and this is what we can see in Srila Prabhupada, like taking his instructions serious and meditating on them and trying to implement them. And yeah, the second question was, is it more better to have somebody we feel cozy with or somebody who is like kind of challenging us? And yeah, good question. I think ultimately all the spiritual masters will challenge us, because that's the duty of the spiritual master. He has to kind of see that we are making progress, and that's it's, I mean, it's up to us, it's like in life in general, we can, if you want to become a good sportsman, you have to do some training, otherwise you're not going to become a good sportsman. And if you want to be a sincere disciple, you have to be ready also to work on your false ego and to accept some chastisement. And usually the spiritual master actually should be somebody who sees when you're ready to accept what. Of course, that's also not always possible, maybe, or it's not always like that. And sometimes we made, like I felt like, oh, wow, he's like, he's heavy. And I heard from others devotees that the spiritual master was very heavy to them, and you could ask them, like, why is he so heavy? And is it still fair? And is he still a kind person? But yeah, that is a materialistic approach again. This is like what we just heard from Karuna Shakti, what he remembered from the Guru Disciple course. We shouldn't look for any material things, and we should always see Krishna, the spiritual master, as a representative of Krishna. And in that sense, of course, doesn't mean like the spiritual master is he's teaching the Vedas. He's not doing some total nonsense. He's not asking us to put a bomb on our body and in the pedestrian zone. Then okay, that goes too far. But if it's about our own false ego, we should always see him as a representative of Krishna. And because if he asks us to put a bomb and go somewhere, then he's not a spiritual master. He lost his connection with the parampara. It's not part of the disciplic succession. But otherwise, if we get chastised, then it's Krishna's mercy. And actually, if we see it in this way, if we accept it as Krishna's mercy, and we might say, wow, that was not like really, I didn't feel like that was good for me, and whatever, I feel like hurt. But anyways, let me accept it as Krishna's mercy, let me overcome it. Then actually we get a lot of mercy. Then we get actually a lot of depths in spiritual life. And this we can see also with Srila Prabhupada. He was sometimes heavy to his disciples, and they could have said like, come on, this is too much, and like I'm going. But they accepted it, and they did so much service. And so everybody can experience that. And this in general, we should be ready as disciples. And even if the spiritual master looks like a very nice guy, it might end up that he will come out and will challenge us, and it's for our good. And we should pray that we have the strength to accept the challenge, or like to grow, with of course he's not challenging us like challenge is the wrong word. He's helping us to grow practically. And there we should search for these things. This is like the real, if you're really sincere in spiritual life, you search for that, and you accept this mercy, and you will get a lot of mercy. This is Krishna. He's also sometimes sometimes, he could, like, there's this pastime with Radharani, and Krishna is holding down the twig of a tree that she can pick some fruits, and she's holding the twig or the branch, and then he's letting it loose, and she flips up, and she could of course get offended and say like, oh, come on, Krishna, and who are you, and how can you do, but that is not what is happening in the spiritual world, like that is not, nobody gets offended in that way, it's all about rasa and being totally humble. And so I would say, you can still choose I think you should really ask Krishna what is the right one, and to show you the proper. And you can of course approach also. You can start relationships with different gurus already. You don't have to wait and ask the first. I did it like this, it was practically my first darshan where I asked, can I be your disciple? But of course you can develop a relationship with different personalities and ask also for spiritual guidance, and you can see who's kind of helping me. But we should be always ready to get some that our false ego gets crushed, because that's part of spiritual life, and that is good for us. Actually, we should be eager for that, because this false ego is our biggest problem. This is our biggest problem. So should be very happy if somebody smashes our false ego. Okay, Hare Krishna.
There are some more questions and comments in the chat box. Maybe I'll just start off with the comment by Vinuya Mataji. She writes, Damodar Priya advised in the Bhakti Shastri course to write every day a letter to the spiritual master and put it on the altar to deepen the connection. I have never heard of that, but that's very interesting. Then there is certainly a very interesting and good idea. I should maybe do that. Then a question by Suman. He writes, Hare Krishna Prabhu, how do I know if I'm qualified to have a spiritual master? What can I do to make myself qualified?
Yeah, practically chant 16 rounds, follow 4 regulative principles. That is, of course, that is like Srila Prabhupada instituted that as the initiation, the Harinam initiation. But if you want to approach a spiritual master, you can do it anywhere, anytime, of course, even if you don't follow these 4 regulative principles and don't chant 16 rounds, because the spiritual master is there to help us. So, but of course, if you accept the spiritual master, then ultimately he will tell you, start chanting 16 rounds and follow the 4 regulative principles. And as long as you're doing this, that is quite something, because this is what Prabhupada said, and he said, if you follow this for the rest of your life, I will bring you back to Godhead. And as I said, we are Prabhupada is our founder Acharya. This is what he did. So our spiritual masters are his representatives, or his, And so, of course, then doing service in the temple, and of course, there's from the institutional side of ISKCON, there's some things, but this is if you get initiated in the end. But because it's not like you approach the spiritual master and he initiates you on the spot. It's said you should develop a relationship, Jiva Goswami says, for half a year, or for 1 year, and the disciple should test the spiritual master, and the spiritual master should test the disciple, which doesn't mean that you are like in a very the sincerity should be tested. It's not like in a like challenging way, but it's in just to see if the relationship works. But it might be that the spiritual master initiates you earlier or later. This might be. This is also individual sometimes, but in general, you are qualified if you have the desire. Like Prabhupada said, if you want to be cheated, you will find a cheater, and if you want to get the real thing, you will find the real guru. And so we should have the desire for purity, and of course, this is actually to get purified also, and then follow the process, which has different aspects. Of course, this chanting and the regulative principles are then in the end very important, but of course reading Srila Prabhupada's books is a very essential part, and associating with devotees, doing service in the temples. These things are very helpful and very good for being sincere ourselves in spiritual life. And if we are sincere, then we are qualified. And the spiritual master sees that also, if you're already in the spiritual process, that's always good, and you get more inspirations also and more understanding about the whole thing. Okay.
And there are 2 questions by Vinuya, and maybe those are, we shall conclude after that. She writes, Hare Krishna, dear Jai Nitai Prabhu, thank you for your very good lecture. How did you learn to really please Krishna, to satisfy his senses and not your own senses? How can I distinguish when I do some service? My second question is, could you please shortly explain how to learn Bhagavad-gītā verses? I remember you had a good system. All the best for you and your family.
Okay, thank you for the questions, and thank you for the good wishes. How did you learn to really please Krishna? I don't know if I already learned this. I mean, what I learned is that of the pleasing Krishna is, in the end, this what gives real satisfaction. But I'm still learning this. It's not that I'm all the time thinking of Krishna and just doing service. My senses also get disturbed with all kinds of ideas on my mind, and senses get distracted. And but this is how you learn it. You become you engage yourself in spiritual life. Of course, the association in devotees, advanced devotees, is very important, because they have this taste and they have this conviction. And actually, to lose the faith in sense gratification is one aspect, important aspect. My Guru Maharaj, he always says, like, losing the faith in sex desire, because we can see the world. There's so much. Sex has such an important part in society nowadays, and people have so much faith that it will bring them happiness, but it doesn't bring us happiness, and we should lose the faith in it. And understanding this is so also losing the faith in sense gratification in general. And that's my personal realization also. If I whatever, I want to see a lecture of Ananda Krishna on YouTube, and then YouTube shows me all kinds of other stuff, and I got interested in, okay, what is this actually, and click there and click there, and then I spend there, and you lose your time there. And then after some time I think, oh my God, I wasted so much time now, and could have just watched Ananda Krishna or something else on the YouTube. So in that sense, then losing some faith, and I think it's we have to to please Krishna is of course, maybe I also didn't really get to this aspect of your question. To please Krishna, of course, that's ultimately the goal of devotional service. If we do devotional service, we want to please Krishna. And it's interesting, like, for example, if we cook, the more we really want to please Krishna with our cooking, the less we do it for our own sense gratification, the more it becomes really transcendental and ecstatic. And it's explained, like when Srila Prabhupada cooked, like devotees, they were like totally in bliss when they accepted this prasadam, and this was totally not from this world. But in the same way, we know sometimes when we cook, and we really cook for Krishna, like in the temple, for example, you cook in the temple and you first serving everyone else, and you don't mind if nothing is left and whatever, and then you get a lot of taste from that. So, and through this taste, you want to please Krishna more, and or you want to experience more of that. And of course, then we have to find the balance also, because we have some bodily needs sometimes. We like there's this also my Guru Maharaj gives us this example of the jugglery, you call it, huh? This of to keep in balance the three balls of service, of sadhana, and of physical health. So we should be, service means to give ourselves to others, practically to do something in the temple or in the for Krishna, like sadhana means to absorb ourselves with spiritual with Krishna practically, and physical health means also to see that we are properly rested, we take the right food, and maybe do some exercise which we need to do to function properly. So there should be a balance, and which sometimes, of course, may occasionally on Janmashtami the balance gets a little bit different, but then sometimes there's a weekend also, and the balance is in another way different. So, but in general, we should seek this balance, and should please. We can experience that pleasing Krishna is the most wonderful thing. And our mind says, oh, come on, but we shouldn't take our mind so serious, like sense gratification, we shouldn't take so serious. And we have so many conceptions also in our mind, like for example, if I didn't do the arati yet, and it's becoming very late, and then I become stressed and I think, okay, I have to do it, and blah, 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 and it becomes more like a burden than real ecstasy. But then we should say stop to our mind and say, okay, come on, let me be with Krishna now. Let me do this arati really for Krishna, and do it with some let's taste it. Let's have some experience. Let's enjoy it, and then it becomes more and more a pleasure to please Krishna. Okay, second question. Bhagavad-gītā verses, how to learn them. I mean, there's a system like Bhagavad-gītā has normally 4 lines, the verses, and you repeat the first line 3 times, like reading it. Then you try to repeat it in the mind, or you can do it also more often, like as long as you like, to keep it, to make it. You can also repeat it 10 times in the mind, the first line. Then you go to the second line, you repeat it, just reading it aloud, then repeating it, practically doing the same like what you did with the first line, and then you do one and second line together. The first 2 lines you repeat them together, first reading, then from the mind, and then you do the same thing with the third and the fourth line. First the third line itself, then the fourth line itself, then the 2 together, and then all of it together. And of course, if you do it, you more regularly do it, the more easy you remember it. And what I also do at the moment is I have this. This is practically also verses from the Bhagavad-gītā. It's kind of in this format. It's the most important verses from Bhagavad-gītā. And you can write them. For example, you could also do it, write it in such a format. And I just read this whole thing every day once. And at the same time, I start in the beginning and try to learn the first verse and the second verse. And so then the first verse I do from the mind, and the rest I read. And then if I learn the second verse, then I do the first 2 verses from the mind, and the rest I read. And then if I go on like this, and then ultimately I know the whole thing by heart, that's my system. But the first system is kind of what I got taught also, and which is kind of a popular system, and which is practical and works. And I like this system also because then I learned the verses, but then, okay, I learned it and then I forget it again. And therefore I do this now to really have them more insight. And this is important also to repeat them even after you learned them, to regularly repeat the verses you learned. Yeah, of course you can also look at the word for word translation, which is actually good, which I also lack of doing. I should do more, because then you get also deeper understanding of the verse, you get more into it, and it's also easier to remember it. Yeah. Okay, so I don't say anything anymore. Thank you very much for your kind association. It was a pleasure to be with you, and I hope we can meet again soon and do a lot of kirtan or whatever, speak about Krishna, and all the best on the way in Krishna consciousness. This spiritual master, it's kind of about the way in Krishna consciousness, so I will use the opportunity for everyone to give my best wishes that all of us have a good journey on the way and find a nice spiritual master, or find a way to please the spiritual master and have a good relationship with it. And
thank you very much, Jai Nitai Prabhu. That was a very nice lecture, and it was very nice to have this interactive portion at the end with so many detailed and profound and useful questions. You can always ask questions, maybe also next week, and we would be glad if you continue that and participate in our lectures, in our presentations by asking questions. And that is also a way of keeping the connection alive during these distanced times. Kalyana Giriraj, he writes, thank you so much for this inspiring lecture. Krishna Katha Prabhu, he also thanks you. And we thank all of you who have joined us, and hope to see you again next week and also in the upcoming weeks. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Have a good night. Hare Krishna.